The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, where we dive deep into the media industry headlines and dissect the digital disruption that diverges the masses into the new media counterculture and away from the media establishment. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can, spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud, he's got radioactive blood. Can he swing from a thread? Take a look overhead. Hey there goes the Spider-Man. In the chill of night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time. Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, wealth and fame he's ignored. Action is his reward. To him, life is a great big bang up. Whenever there's a hang up, that's what it is. You'll find the Spider-Man, right? The 1967 animated series, which I got the catch in the 80s as a young child and enjoyed, along with the Nicholas Hammond starred Spider-Man series live action in 1977, and watching those and always think, why wasn't this more of a series? Why only we get a couple of episodes? And I always kept hearing the whole story about there was not enough budget for it. It cost too much to create the show, whatever it was. But I loved all that stuff, man. Spider-Man was cool. And, oh my God, the animated series, the 81, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, watching that too. That's all that was good. The movies have really brought such a different look to it. And I think this is an example of one of the iconic characters from animated films, or from animation, from comic books, that brought to life now today with Spider-Man No Way Home, has brought the franchise to such a level, not just because of what the Marvel Universe has done with Marvel Studios since Tobey Maguire first donned the Spider-Man outfit, then Andrew Garfield. From my background, by the way, I did not watch every Spider-Man movie, okay? I missed the last one of Tobey Maguire's run. I did not catch the second Andrew Garfield one, and I've watched all the ones with Tom Holland. I watched them all. And it's great. So, I mean, my thing with the Peter Parker character, I know it's the way it's set, but when I looked at the movie and I watched it last Friday, my thing is, I feel a different kind of logic when it comes to, if you have the choice to say to yourself, okay, he has the girl, he has the best friend, he has the powers to do good. And because of some mistakes he's made, because he's a young kid, not even out of high school yet, or just about to graduate high school at this point, his thing is that he wants to go in and be able to say, okay, I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to hurt Aunt May, all of that. And only wants to do good. So because he's being selfish, because a young kid being selfish, I'm sure that the audience that's there, the younger audience, could probably relate to him. So I understand that part. But just, there's the ask, and then the constant changing of decisions. And Doctor Strange, I felt upset like he was, because, damn it, kid, why you keep changing this up? There's no exceptions. That's okay. I get that part. But then the part was where Doctor Strange, I thought, was right when it comes to, why are you going to let the villains survive? Okay, let them go back to where they go on, and what's going to happen to them is what's going to happen to them. They still determine their own fate. So why does it matter saving and reviving them? Which, that's the part of the story I didn't like. That kind of just bothered me, but that's just because, that's the way the Peter Parker character is. Tom Holland's done a very good job of playing the role here. I'm never going to pick which one I like better. And if I had to go pick which romantic influence of the three, when it comes to Gwen Stacy and Emma Stone, or Mary Jane Watson as Kirsten Dunst, or MJ as Zendaya, I don't know. I could probably put a 1 to 3, but I'm really not going to put much of that. My thing is, they obviously played the Tom Holland character and the Zendaya characters for today's generation. That's what it feels like now. And for me, I just look at it and say, man, that was the reason I had to get to the story, which was the crux of the entire story. But if the story doesn't happen that way, we don't get all that we got. We don't get all the villains returning, which everybody popped for in my theater. I had a full house. Everybody popped, okay? Everybody super popped, of course. You know, and everybody, you know the times when you cheered, you know the times when you clapped, okay? In my audience, there was a ooh for Daredevil, representing Peter Parker, right? There's that. Then after that, you would have to say it's the reveals of Doc Ock, Green Goblin, among others. Like that's Electro, yeah, all of that. So that's the other ooh-ahs, okay? Or the actual excitement. You know, but the cheers and the hoorays, damn. Of course, when Andrew Garfield pops up, takes the mask off, the crowd erupts in a roar. And then Tobey Maguire, even better after that. And then after that, the synchronized swinging around the Empire State Building, that got a nice, it was like an opera. It was a very polite applause. We didn't get the full hooting and hollering. We just got a great applause during it, which was so fantastic. I can't remember the last time I went to a movie, except for Avengers End Game, where I got that full experience of, you know, that there's something to be said about, you know, the cinematic universes. When I think about what Marvel does for a movie like this, I never got that from Justice League. I never got that from, you know what I got that from as well? Dragon Ball Z Broly. I got that at that movie because everybody was like Super Saiyan. They connected. They did it. Right. And that was that part. And everybody got a good cheer. And yeah, you got the applause at the end. But we don't get that much. Not often. But what they did with the movie, I can't deny why they did what they did. The storyline was good. They wrapped it up very nicely. And the most important thing is that the ramifications of the actions that Peter Parker, the Tom Holland character, did by making the choice he did and causing the mess that he created, where he lost Aunt May, which was going to be kind of down the normal trope of what happens to Spider-Man. Someone he loves passes away because of what happens. I mean, indirectly result of what his powers have brought him. So there's all that. And I get that whole part. And listen, you can listen to a whole lot of other people, much more prominent than me, that are fan people, that are super fans of the MCU, and could just absolutely just go circles talking about this. Listen, my coworker, he's already seen it. When I talked to him last Friday, he had already seen it on Thursday night, twice on Friday, and I'm sure he saw it again a few more times over the weekend. Like, I mean, he went multiple times. So when I talked to him, like, you know, just to kind of make the point, I saw it because I'll watch movies as much as he does, but he's probably a little more intense about it, and that's cool. But when it looks to me, that's where I took away from the movie myself. And I'm sure there's other people that might agree with me, and a lot that won't agree with me. But the bottom line is that that's a movie. I mean, if I wanted to go back and see it again, I could. I mean, I got the unlimited pass. I could go see it again if I want to. But it's the timing I have. There's too many other movies to watch. I got Matrix this weekend. Kingsman. I don't know if I'll catch it this week or the next weekend, depending on. Because the other thing, too, is that because Christmas Eve is where it is, then it doesn't make sense for me to watch it then. And then I have to figure out, okay, I'll probably go watch Kingsman somewhere during the middle of the week next week before New Year's Eve. Like, I could have gone to see Matrix today, but I didn't bother because I had to do this show. And I had other things I was going to do. I just didn't feel like going. Just not right. Not Thursday night. Just didn't feel like right at this moment. That's okay. And so I had that thought process. I was thinking, okay, well, all I know is with Spider-Man, everybody else felt the same way. I mean, I don't know what the entire look of the whole movie and how well it did. I haven't looked at Rotten Tomatoes since, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that have put a pretty high mark on it. Googled 97%. Here you go. Spider-Man No Way Home right now, among 25,000 verified ratings, 99%, and it is a fresh tomato meter rating, 94%. Wow. That is good. And probably arguably one of the best Marvel movies ever done. And I was really down on the last Spider-Man of No Way Home. Or Away From Home, excuse me. I was not big about that. Far From Home. I always say Away From Home. No, Far From Home. That's the one I didn't really care for. It was like, people still liked it, but I wasn't too much into it. Because I hated the story of where MJ and Peter were trying to get themselves together and the whole kind of disconnect there. I hated it. I guess, but then again, that's just me where it's like, it's that teen romance kind of thing, just not for me. Seen enough of that stuff before in like other teen angst movies and stuff like that. I'm just like, hey, that's not enough. Don't need that. So anyway, this weekend, Spider-Man no doubt will probably rule the box office for the next few weeks and takes away the spot that normally a Star Wars movie will be in, right? Because usually that's what would be dominating the main aspect of movies coming up. You usually have some kind of a Star Wars movie or something like that would be all over the place. But right now, when you look at it, the movie is just far and away just blowing out the competition. Again, the total gross of the movie this weekend domestically, this past weekend, $260 million. 4,300 theaters. You have people that are worried about the Omicron variant and movie theaters maybe either taking restrictions or causing the mandates to force people to kind of say, you know what, maybe I don't want to go see it right now. But you had to go to the theater to watch it, and people were not worried about what was going on because the fact of the matter is that Spider-Man No Way Home pulled serious money. Over $250 million already in the first week. Not to mention what they've already done worldwide. It's already broken. It's about to break $800 million now. $422 million internationally. And it's going to break $1 billion. It will break $1 billion. And I'm trying to think, what will it have taken on that will be the... it's not going to be Avengers big. I don't think it'll get that point. If it does, I'll be very surprised. But Avengers End Game at the end of their run, when it was released April 23rd, 2019, okay, theatrically, $858 million domestic, almost $2 billion international. Wow. And it made theatrically $2.8 billion. At video sales over 100,000 worldwide. That is crazy. And production budget $400,000. Meanwhile, the production budget for No Way Home is said to be $200 million. Well, they're going to make it back. That's for anybody that thought this movie was going to hold up and it was going to be held back. Nope. That it was not going to do well. Originally, and also the other thing too, is that because of the pandemic, of course, another one of these movies that was moved around because of the release date, because we were still dealing with COVID in a major sense, where we still had a lot of restrictions and a lot of major things going on where people were still getting vaccinated. The first set of vaccines being put out for people to go ahead and get. So you have this and you're saying to yourself, okay, originally the movie was going to be put out just after July 4th weekend, July 16th. That was the original. Then pushed back to November 5th, pushed to December 2021. Did not get pushed to next year. But meanwhile, they were able to get, which is really interesting, that Marvel was able to get 4 movies out this year. Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and Eternals. So they got all of that in and were able to make it happen. And it worked out well. So the movie is it's the third highest grossing film of 2021. And that's of English and American made movies, because there are other ones that are out there that we don't know about. They're basically Chinese movies that have made $800 million and $900 million respectively. But among the movies this year, at this moment, highest grossing films, Spider-Man is number one in America. Then No Time to Die is second. Worldwide gross $774 million. So if anybody thought that Bond was not there anymore, people went to see it. It got a lot of money. $774 million. F9, $726 million this year. Venom: Let There Be Carnage, just about to break $500 million. Then just underneath that, you have Godzilla vs. Kong, $467. Shang-Chi, $432 for that movie that nobody thought it was going to do as well. And Eternals. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe, according to where I'm reading here, became the first film franchise to gross $23 and $24 billion with the releases of Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and Spider-Man No Way Home. So as a franchise, $24 billion. Those are the kind of movies you can put out, which they did 4 this year. And if you have them coming out as much as they do, they're going to make money. That says a lot. We want to go ahead and focus a little more on that point here on the Broadcasters Podcast. Yeah, that's the show you've been listening to this whole time for the last 15 minutes. So let's go into the actual numbers of what they have here. Again, at the moment, through Wednesday, this is coming from Deadline.com, they've actually pulled more than what it was just originally reported, I just mentioned, $813.9 million, and has now pushed past No Time to Die. The top 10 markets, the UK, Mexico, France, Korea, Brazil, Australia, India, Russia, Italy, and Germany. And now you have to go and see what's going to happen. Now that Spider-Man's come through, we got this weekend, The King's Man, Matrix Resurrections, that are coming up after that. You know, how much is that? You know, how much will people be able to get that? Plus, the other thing is that Matrix Resurrections is an HBO Max film. So Warner Brothers is putting out for theatrical release simultaneous the last movie in this experimentation of Warner Brothers putting out movies the same time on HBO Max. This is the last one. So, I don't know. For me, I would want to watch Matrix in a movie theater anyway. I could watch it right now on HBO Max. I choose not to. That's one of those movies I also want to see in the theater. Because the same thing goes, you're going to have people that are going to want to watch that movie. And I think it's going to do much better than Wonder Woman 1984 did, when you look at it. Now, there's some stories that came out that talk about this that are very interesting when it comes to the importance of Spider-Man and how well it did. Number one, a story from Hollywood Reporter that talks about how this movie is a mixed blessing for Hollywood. So Pamela McClintock talks about that you have 3 movies, big major movies are coming out this weekend. And remember, of the Christmas holiday, you know, you had West Side Story that I don't even look at what they did, but West Side Story did not do well. If I look at the weekend chart, West Side Story was third and pulled in $3 million, $3.6 million, has made $18 million off a $100 million budget. It's just tanking right now. It's bad. Now, the other movie I watched this weekend was Nightmare Alley, which pulled $2.8 million. And by the way, I liked it. I think it had a good story behind it. I don't know if I know that the ratings were not good, but I think that was a damn good cast they put together. You know, I like a lot of stuff that Bradley Cooper and Kate Blanchett and Rooney Mara are in. It's always good. Willem Dafoe being featured in 2 movies this weekend. How about that? It was weird. Kind of had a little bit of a more American Horror Story freak show kind of element to it, because that's what it really was about. But, I mean, what they did with the story and what they brought to it and how they wrapped up was pretty good. It's just weird. It's kind of film noir kind of thing to me. But I like those kind of movies. It looks like something that could be, could get some nominations for Oscars for all I know, or Golden Globe, something like that. It'll just get some critical acclaim, I think. I would imagine anyway. But it's not a movie that's going to draw people to theaters. House of Gucci, so far, that's been out since Thanksgiving in 4 weeks, $45 million total. I don't know how much the budget was on that, but, that doesn't look like it did too bad. And I like the movie in terms of what they did with that as well. Wasn't too bad. $75 million budget. So it's struggling now to go and make its money back, which is what sucks. But the movie wasn't that bad to me at all. I don't know. It has made worldwide $110 million, so it does get that part. And, it'll find its way to make its money back, but I'm surprised it didn't do better. I don't think it was marketed that highly. They could have even done better, but they did. And it is what it is. But I did catch it over the Thanksgiving holidays, and, I've had some good movies to watch. Like I said, I went back to October and look at all we had. A lot of movies that were coming back in, stacking back up. And again, we know that into January and into 2022, it's just going to be loaded with movies. There'll be a lot out there. So take your chance at it. If you want to go after a movie pass, go right ahead at your heart's content. So in the story from Hollywood Reporter, they say that No Way Home is a mixed blessing of sorts. While it's indisputably a big win for theatrical and the box office recovery, it underscores the massive divide between big, splashy event pictures and everything else, which is a gap that has been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. In its opening weekend, Spider-Man commanded more than 92% of all business. Yeah, there was nothing else I was going to go watch at all. Now, Avengers End Game held up 88%. And remember, that was before pandemic. And there was a lot of other options to go to see. ComScore's Paul DeGarabedian says, quote, "There is very much a one-movie marketplace of Spider-Man No Way Home operating in an alternative multiverse where concerns over COVID don't exist. It is for now leaving the box office crumbs for all the other movies to share. Mid-range and smaller specialty films relying on adults to over 35 perished under the crushing blow that is No Way Home. Guillermo del Toro's star-studded Nightmare Alley and Steven Spielberg's West Side Story." So yeah, Nightmare Alley, it bombed. I never saw, except for a couple of marketing spots when it comes to, let me see. I think I saw something on YouTube, and I saw some things where, in the movie theater, I saw trailers for it. But I think part of what was going on here is that people were really kind of upset with the fact that, it's weird how this movie looks, and then you see Bradley Cooper in a tub with fire around it, and you're wondering what kind of movie this is. Well, it was different than what people probably thought. The trailer was misleading, but that's what it was. But again, they had I keep saying again, but they did have a pretty star-studded cast. Throughout the box office recovery, Hollywood studio executives and specialty distributors have been fretting over the inability of adult-skewing movies to catch on at the box office. So there was always some movies that would hit for an older audience that would bring people to the movies. But you're noticing that it's a younger audience going to the movies now than it is an older audience. But Spider-Man, really does span across different generations. Someone like me, all the way to somebody who's really just young and into this altogether is the big difference. But yeah, anything that's been kind of older, like I'm still going to those movies because I like those movies anyway. Like I'm the kind of guy that will go watch Spider-Man and the Marvel movies and DC, whatever there is, and I will still catch some of these other movies that are a little more refined, a little bit more low budget, more independently produced kind of things, more adult driven or adult skewing, they say, because I'm an adult. Now, I don't know what Nightmare Alley's production budget was there, but I can go take a look at that as well. But yeah, the fact that it only made $2 million or almost $3 million, that's not good. It was made against a $60 million production budget. Oof, that's not good. Wow. So they've had movies that have not done well, and I think, the COVID would be a part of it, but I also think they would have underperformed anyway. And that's a problem there with what the attitude is and what is the movies that are willing to be, that people will go make an event out of. They want it to be like an event. They want it to be like a performance, like something more. Because what happened was, we know that because of the pandemic, we know that more people have gotten much more accustomed to watching movies from home. There's a little bit of a switch that happened where people got comfortable watching movies from home and knowing they have the streaming boxes or the streaming dongles, devices, whatever, so they can go and watch Netflix, Amazon Prime, and if there's some new movies that come up through their streaming service, whether it's HBO Max or Peacock or Disney Plus, they could go ahead and buy the premium, or could they just wait? We're not worried about the DVDs or DVRs now. We just wait for it to just pop right up. And that goes across the board. I mean, when you think about it, the behavior of your average viewer, they're much more on demand. They're not appointment viewers. For people to go to the movies, it's not appointment viewing anymore, unless it's something that you don't want to be spoiled by. You definitely have to go watch. I mean, that's what's going on here. If it's something that everybody's going to be talking about, everybody wants to be a part of. I mean, the one thing for me is this is a movie just like Star Wars. It's one of those movies where you don't want to be left out. Now, part of that would be a fear of missing out, FOMO. You don't get that from these other movies. So movies like West Side Story, you're just retelling the story from 61. When you're looking at Nightmare Alley, it's a story that doesn't compel you. You might also think about the fact that if you knew Spider-Man was playing in your theater and you were going to go watch Nightmare Alley, then you know what? You were going to probably not have that many showings of the movie because, like it said, 92% of theaters were consumed with Spider-Man No Way Home because they were more worried about having that movie on a billion screens you can go watch. Because let me tell you, when I went to the movie theater this weekend, you couldn't miss a time to watch Spider-Man No Way Home. They left the hours wide open, and plenty of them. I don't know how many times they ran it, but they probably had at least about 6 theaters, 6 or 7 or 8 screens used up out of the 16. Maybe more than that were consumed for watching that movie. And everybody it looked like I went to the theater with, first of all, I haven't seen the concession stands that busy in a long time. And that's because everybody was there. I mean, the kind of public you want of that younger crowd, they went there like it was a sporting event. You saw people dressed up. It was a thing. It was something to go do. You had to be there, be part of it, part of the experience. So you make it like an event like that. That's what Marvel and the DC movies have done. Right? And all these other cinematic universes, that's what they've done. Even Matrix is going to pull some people in this weekend, or already now as I record this. So you have that as well. And that's not the same for these other movies. All these other movies are getting left behind. House of Gucci was another example. $44 million to date domestically. The one reason this movie was successful is that Lady Gaga, as one of the featured stars, pulled in younger moviegoers, a demo that's fueling the recovery. Box office results on Monday proved another worrisome data point for perplexed distribution executives because No Way Home continued to account for more than 90% of all businesses. Now, the year-end holiday box office has always been known for being able to support multiple titles. In 2019, we had Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker and Jumanji: The Next Level that did well together at the same time. And even when Star Wars: The Force Awakens debuted to a then $248 million over the December 18th to December 18th to December 20th weekend, Alvin and the Chipmunks Road Trip managed to place second with $14.3 million. The comedy Sisters was $14 million. And then when you look at the comparisons for the movies this year, or that was after Spider-Man, Encanto was the other movie that actually probably did really well. $6.5 million in its second week. And there's a whole lot left right now. So now you got Sing 2, the animated feature, Matrix Resurrections, The King's Man, and there's another movie that is George Clooney's adult screening drama, The Tender Bar, starring Ben Affleck, which is also debuting. But I don't know if anybody's going to even know what that movie is or they're going to watch it. But there's something to be said about what there is and what people are watching. So there is the side of targeting the moviegoers. I mean, the fact that the movie theaters are getting younger audiences is great for the box office in terms of they need to start cranking out movies much more like that to get them to the movie theaters. And they're spending, because also if you get the younger people to go into the movie theaters, like 18, 20, 30 years old, they're going to have that disposable income to go to a movie as opposed to going to somewhere else. I mean, that's still reasonably affordable. Maybe not the tickets and the whole thing about concessions, but I mean, it's still somewhat attainable that people can go of all ages and basically of whatever kind of background you are, whatever kind of salary you make, you still can be able to go and get yourself out to go catch a movie. If you want to go out on a date, you can go catch a movie. You can still do that. And that's what people were able to do. So in that said, let's look at what the younger end of that audience is right now, why it's doing so well. Because I guess one of the things I want to ask myself is, would Matrix and the fact they're bringing it back, and also what I've been hearing about from the movie is that they're actually trying to go ahead and this Matrix movie could leave enough to kind of resurrect the franchise again and start it back up, because that would be the idea what they would have. So Matrix could have that same opportunity to do the same thing, but, you know, they still got Spider-Man that's going on. Well, let's see what happens. So IndieWire writes about how Spider-Man No Way Home has at least temporarily shifted assessments about theaters. The next 2 weeks are critical to sustain optimism. Because right now, the holiday season, the kind of money they're making based on what they were making in 2019 is surpassed it. Originally, people thought that the movie theaters would make about 3/4 what they were making in 2019 in the fourth quarter, or at least in the month of December. The only question is, will people not want to go and watch Matrix on HBO Max? Are they willing to go ahead and say, you know what, maybe we're going to still go out there? Well, the idea right now is industry tracking is pegging the movie to get up to $60 million or $55 million through next Monday, if you're including the whole holiday weekend. If it comes close to that, then they might be able to add more. The thing is that they don't think the movie's going to make $100 million in the theater because they have this going on HBO Max. But I think HBO Max, I don't know if it's going to do the same thing that what Wonder Woman did. But they're going to have the chance to go one full year to see if the subscriber base stays sustained or it increases, which is the whole reason why Warner Brothers decided to do this with HBO Max, to see if it would hold up. And then next, after that, you have to go and see what movies are out. And there's the other thing, too. How much of this can you say that if you still have the Marvel movies that are out, that we know that Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these other streaming outlets, they've been producing and premiering new movies. There's a bunch of new movies that they put on Netflix. I think they were trying to say they were going to make one a week, and I haven't caught any of them. Not a one. Just had 2 other things to go and work about. Not even worried about it. Like, it's been very weird that I've just kept myself so busy that I haven't just decided to go and just take a break and just, binge away. I just haven't done it. I haven't had to bother. So, because it feels weird. Like, I mean, even before I used to go and have like certain TV shows I'd watch on network TV, and now they're on break, and I would be like, okay, now I got to catch up on binge watching. But just my mindset of watching TV like that is kind of gone. I really haven't gotten that I have a certain threshold, and I need to go and keep it with like 10 different shows like I used to. Like right now, my current schedule, currently I keep with Power, Book 2, Ghost, and Dexter. And that's it. I mean, next month, I'll have it replaced with Billions. And then I'll have the Ray Donovan movie. And I think Better Call Saul comes up in February. I think it is the last season. I forget. So there's a couple things like that. But then, other than that, there's not much else. It's kind of just, falls in a certain spot. So right now, in the story from IndieWire, they're saying, quote, as long as studios can supply a product like Spider-Man, theaters will survive. But there's no reason to believe one unexpectedly strong month changes dominant trends. Christmas is usually the best time of the year for older audience moviegoing. But now, if you're taking that point and you're thinking that they're not able to go and keep that up, well, let's look at what the release schedule is next year. And I'll tell you that they have a good chance to do it. Right off the bat, you got Scream that comes out January 14th next year. It's again rebooting, but they have their fan base. It could do very well. Morbius is January 28th, so you're going right back into the Marvel universe again. Then you got Jackass Forever on February 4th, and that always brings a certain audience around. I would think some younger viewers will watch that. Then you got Batman on March 4th. And then after that, you get into Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in April. Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore is April 15th. Then you go into May, and you got Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which you've already put out trailers for. Bob's Burgers, May 27th. You're sprinkled across the board with movies that are going to be younger skewing that people will go to. I really believe that. Jurassic World Domination is June 10th. And let's not mention there's a couple of Blumhouse projects that are also in the run that will also bring people in. Thor Love and Thunder is July 8th. Then we move along to the Mission Impossible 7, September 30th. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2 is October 7th. The Flash, November 4th. I'm sure going to be a lot of people for that. Like next holiday season is going to be loaded. For a younger audience, you got The Flash. You got Black Panther Wakanda Forever, November 11th. Then leading up to Thanksgiving weekend, Creed 3. And then next Christmas, you have Mario, like as in the right? Super Mario Brothers, is that what it is? And then you have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and Avatar 2. It's all next year. Oh man, this is crazy. Yeah, it is the animated Mario film, which already has a hell of a cast in there that's going to draw people in. So you got that going for you as well. It's just crazy, man. There's a lot coming out. So if the movie theaters are kind of worried about it all, I wouldn't, because there's a lot of movies sprinkled throughout all year long that will draw people in, and they're younger skewing. So the real question is that are you going to have movies that are going to be out there that are going to draw an older audience? I don't know if that's going to be out there or not. That's kind of the issue right now. But anyway, that's about as much as I'm going to say about the box office. I'll let you know what Matrix Resurrections is next week and tell you if it's any good or not. Got a few of those stories I want to bring up real quick for all of you that as we kind of wrap things up for the year. I mean, if I get some time right now, I got a few more stories to bring in after my main topic, where I want to talk about next how exclusive contracts leave writers and actors scrambling to navigate supercharged job market. So writers and actors, there's a whole change in Hollywood right now on the showrunners and what's being done now in a very active market for television, especially for streaming, and what people are trying to do to kind of keep themselves working and keep themselves under contract. Then you have ratings about the audience size for television and where it could increase. Another story from TheWrap.com talking about how that Google and Amazon could control 80% of all connected TVs in a decade. So we think that down the line, as I mentioned last week on the show, that all these major setups for all these streaming services, they're going to be bundled together. And the idea would be that Google and Amazon will be able to go ahead and control the market on that. On all connected TVs at some point. Also, I have a story about a study from the CMA, the Country Music Association, about how country can expand its audience, country music. Then there's a story about pop culture disappointments, according to this story from Wired.com. I want to bring it through real quick. And the evolution of podcasting may continue to its own demise. So let's go and run through all that here. Next 20 minutes of the show. Let's go and get into it. So the Wrap talks about, well, actually, no, I want to get back to the story from Variety because it did stand out to me and I thought it'd be important. So they write and say, at a time, quote, when the global content business is moving faster than ever, many writers feel like they're stuck in second gear by the nature of series deal of contracts that haven't kept pace with the times. So here's what they're talking about. Right now, networks, studios, and streamers can hold writers and talent under exclusive deals for anywhere between 9 months to a year per standard series agreement deals, preventing them from booking other jobs in a time without a complicated process of approvals, hindering the ability for them to chase other job opportunities. So they can't necessarily just go ahead and be kind of independent where they can work on multiple projects. When they're stuck on one project, they're stuck in a contract and they can't move themselves somewhere else because of an antiquated setup. So the constraints of writer deals have been around for a long time, but they were instituted at a time when broadcast or network TV was the only game in town, and writers worked 8 or 9 months out of the year on seasons of at least 20 or more episodes. But now that's all changed. So there are lower and mid-level clients that talent agents have talked about who are losing work due to exclusivity exacerbated by the multiple factors like the year-round development cycle and short order seasons of 13 episodes or less. Writers get paid less because they work on fewer episodes, but they still face long contract holds. So they just don't get to go and work onto another project afterwards because they're held to a contract for a longer time. That's probably just something where it's a legal standard that they put in place about the timeline that a contract's supposed to be held. It's probably what it is. Because if there's anything else they want to have, they could probably always pitch them to say, hey, can you help us with this as well? Who knows? One talent agent under condition of anonymity said, quote, short season orders are a major reason this is a problem. Clients are working for fewer weeks, making less money on a given job, then they're being held under these exclusive deals for the same amount of time as if they're working on a 22-episode season. So they're still working on network TV-style deals. Meanwhile, we know that there are a lot of writers that could be working on maybe 2 or 3 shows a year. And they'll just kind of rotate from one show that comes back into production. They have to write for it, then the next show, or they could just do 2 at a time. Who knows? But, I mean, there might be some occasions where you don't get to have to worry about that. For instance, I would imagine the people that work in the Power universe, they're probably the same writers that Courtney A. Kemp probably uses, but she's doing multiple series. So they could all be writing for Ghost or Force or Raising Kanan, right? All that stuff. You could do all that and make something work out of that. Now, there's one person that writes in here, Lori Espinoza, Senior Director of Contracts of the Writers Guild. She makes the mention of that writers earning less than $350,000 in a given year are covered by the provision that they can't be held exclusive after the last payment is due under their agreement. There was a set rule in the Guild's basic agreement with the studios, putting limits on how long writers could be held to exclusivity. Now, she goes on to say, quote, a hiatus isn't really a hiatus if you have the showrunner and his or her number 2 working on rewriting scripts or polishing scripts. That's not actually a true hiatus, so we've had some difficulties with that. It's entirely possible, of course, they say, that networks and streamers could sign off on someone taking another job if the scheduling lines up, but there's no guarantee this will happen. And mid-level actors are feeling the pinch. A-list stars have the cachet to move between outlets and sign one-year deals for prestige limited series, while others are not so fortunate. Getting approval can take time, and agents say that it does not come fast enough. The other project can move on to other people for the open roles. And network executives are recognizing the status quo is untenable, and that changes the new system are inevitable. So you're going to have to see this going to be changing on. If you're looking to be an aspiring writer or talent, and you're realizing the new environment where if you're working in television, I mean, it's not just where you're doing the bit roles for network and whatnot. You're like assigned to an exclusive deal. What you're getting now is if you're good enough, you need to be able to make sure that you have, representation or have a way to get yourself opened up for multiple projects so that you're always working and you're not stuck to a deal where you're not working. and you're not allowed to work because you're held back to this deal, which, they need to make it where it's not the year-long kind of deal. They need to make deals that are structured differently. So they'll have to figure that out. And that might just be something where, we'll get back to the bargaining table about something like that. That's what they'll have to wait for to make that happen. Now, in terms of the audience that's watching these shows with all these actors and writers, where are they watching? The TV audience, the actual audience is watching by way of remote control, right? So the first thing we had talked about earlier in the year, which kind of goes into what happened with, the pandemic and how things were portrayed during the pandemic, were all the broadcast TV award shows. Awards are not in anymore. They're not as interesting as people used to think they were. They're not as exciting as they were. People are not caring as much. And that goes for all of them. Even Miss Universe, which I watched somewhat last week. I saw Miss India win Miss Universe. Here's what you have when it comes to the audiences. I'm looking at the graph right now for total audience for broadcast TV award shows. They all went down. All of them. The only one that did not, it looks like, is the Critics' Choice Television Awards. No, that also went down. All of them dropped. The Golden Globes dropped by 62%. The Grammys were down by 51%. The Oscars down 56%. Mind you, I said this during the year in media, which I haven't gone through extensively, but if you go back to past episodes when I talked about the influencers and how much of a change in our habits that we had gotten from the pandemic, where we're not, when the glamorous look and the fantasy and the whole spectacle of Hollywood, when that's unveiled and you're having all these stars on Zoom calls with no makeup and not put together and doing stuff from their homes and realizing, oh, wow, they're just like us. They're just everyday people. Then you lose the spectacle, the mystique of what they are behind the camera. You lose all that. And that hurt everybody. Plus, the fact is, of the movies they had available to watch, even with, the fact that Netflix and Amazon Prime, you still had new movies that were coming out and were just being put strictly into this video on demand. They might not have caught them, or if they did, it just didn't do much. And, there's a whole thought process where I think they, the pandemic made the scope of what the true feeling about Hollywood performers, those celebrities, that they're just, they're rich people that are living a different life than we are, and they can't relate. They're out of touch with us. And realizing that the influencers being able to do stuff on social media, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok, we're interested in them with their ring lights and their iPhone cameras, and be able to go and do content that just compels us just as much. And there's something to be said when certain stars are not acting, they're not doing what they normally do, they're not making movies, and they have to make themselves relevant by trying to stay in some kind of limelight. Well, they should have stayed out of the limelight. And it might have just hurt them altogether. Plus, the way the presentations of all these award shows were done, the social distancing, the masks, all that stuff. You know what? People don't want to see that on television. It's not a matter that it's not that the pandemic is not important. And that even with the Omicron variant now, that we're not being cognizant of it. It's not anything about that. Is that people don't want to watch that shit on our television sets. We don't like seeing it on TV. We don't even want to think about it. It's escapism. And when you're looking at Hollywood on the red carpet, do we want to see the masks? And do we want to see this social distancing? No, we want to see the audience like we normally do and the kind of things that happen in those award shows. But, when you decide to put politics more into place, you just, and listen, I'm reading a book right now that's talking about the fact that how no matter what political side you're on, the thing is that there are certain language, there are words that are being said by both sides of the aisle. If you're one extreme or the other, and even if you're not, there's just a thing where people have the narrative, the way they have to go and say things portrayal, how they like to go and say things, what words are being used to describe people or issues that people just don't care about. Your everyday person in the middle does not give a shit about. And to hear people talking like they know better than anybody else, that's one thing. Okay, celebrities can try to think, they're going to be able to say something to us because they're better than us, because they're more successful than us. They're richer than us. They're more well off than us. Okay. But a lot of that audience, they're just everyday people that like to watch your movies, like to watch your TV shows. We don't care about what you say. Go and act. All right? Perform. Do what your craft is, right? And if we want to hear from you, we want to hear about your project. What are you working on? And maybe hear a little bit about you, because we might be fascinated about you as a person, and what you are doing with what you do, and who you're working with, and what kind of things that you do. The Graham Norton interview. And what a great example of an interviewer that actually gets it. And has been doing it for years, much like how Johnny Carson was back in the day. Just saying. Now, the next thing you had was also more specials on broadcast TV. That none of the most popular shows watched by viewers between 18 and 49 years old on network TV were scripted or unscripted shows. The list is most dominated by sports. The highest rated non-sporting title was Adele One Night Only on CBS. The next thing you have is slimmed down pay-per-view bundles, paid TV bundles, sports, cable news, and reality shows accounted for 91% of the top 1,000 shows among 18 to 49-year-old viewers. Now, the one thought process is that while 18 to 49-year-olds are highly interested in these three key genres, well, let's make paid TV models, which is what you got ESPN Plus. Now you got Fox Nation. Now you're going to get CNN Plus coming up soon. And reality shows, I don't know what you do. Maybe you create a new channel, a new service for that. That you want to be able to create paid TV packages for just these genres to keep 18 to 49-year-old viewers subscribing to cable and keep it low enough of the price point to attract some cord cutters or cord nevers to pick up the package. But they're still dealing with the fact that there's a bleeding of cable subscribers and current strategies aren't working, and the result is TV viewers are skewing increasingly over 50 years old. So yeah, cable and network TV, it's getting older. And the only thing that people will go and watch on those channels is, again, live sports, cable news, and reality shows. And that's it. I mean, I look at the numbers when I see the regular top 150 shows on cable every day. It's usually that. That's it. I know I'm part of that audience because I'm not watching anything else besides watching live sports. Like, all I've watched this season, broadcast season, starting in fall, a lot of football, whether Monday night, Sunday night, or Thursday night. A lot of wrestling, which counts in that sports category as well. And that's it. Because I swore off cable news. I haven't watched any of that. And I feel so much better for it. I'm telling you, I've kept it the entire year. And I would tell you to do the same thing too. Get politics out of your life. Just strip it out. Just take it away. There's better things to worry about, better things to be more concerned with. Just saying. Okay, I'm running out of time. I want to get more things done in an hour. So let's go and talk about country music. We'll talk about this. And I'll leave the other part of the stories that I have. I'll leave that for next week. But I'll leave them in the show description so you can take a look for yourself if you want to go ahead and watch it and check it out. Get a preview before I go ahead and talk about it. We can do that too. Country music. There's a question about how country music can expand its audience. Because we can see that country music is definitely making some changes now. There are definitely changes that are being made. And part of this being said is that country music, who's being noticed as the next country artists, it's changing. Because you're seeing more diversity among the artists that are performing country music. So the Country Music CMA Awards, they talked about the recent efforts to put a more diverse group of artists in the spotlight. the Tennessean newspaper had reported a new CMA commissioned study by Horowitz Research about country music's multicultural opportunity. The listening habits of Black, Latinx, no, there's that part, Latina, okay, Asian and white audiences, as well as the reasons non-country music listeners have for not engaging with the genre. So according to the study, 6 in 10 U.S. adults listen to country music at least monthly. That drops to 5 in 10 when narrowing the gap to non-white listeners. And then they look at different groups. They look at core listeners, casual listeners, non-rejecters, and rejectors. So but the rejectors are considered potential listeners. That makes up 55% of potential black listeners, 46% of Latina listeners, or Hispanic, 54% of Asian, and 75% of white listeners. So country music could reach as many as 164 million U.S. adults. Now, here's what some of the things they learned about. The reasons for not listening to country music if you're not part of that country crowd. There was 3 answers in common: just not that into it, not top of mind, can't relate to the vibe. 37% of black non-listeners responded that country artists don't hold a person of color fans. 1/3 of all segments say the country lyrics were not relatable. Among the most striking reasons, quote, wouldn't be safe, comfortable at a live event, because they think it's mostly white audiences that are going to those shows. Okay. A majority of country's core listeners across all segments agree that the genre is becoming more diverse. The study explored then potential actions that can make a positive impact and grow engagement among all audiences. The most popular solution among white, Latina, or Hispanic and Asian participants was more collaborations between country and non-country artists. Black participants' top answer for the industry was to, quote, do more to celebrate cultural diversity, end quote. Prioritizing a diverse pool of artists, the country music industry is doing more to address radical social justice issues and more recognition of music's black roots. The Cma Awards, Jimmy Allen was the second black artist in history to win the New Artist of the Year prize. Country act Brothers Osborne was named Duo of the Year for the first time since lead vocalist T.J. Osborne came out as gay, and black artists Mickey Guyton, Brittany Spencer, and Madeline Edwards performed the self-acceptance anthem, Love My Hair. Now CMA has a DEI task force, and they're committing to amplifying traditions by building an inclusive crowded table that embraces and celebrates different cultures across race, gender, age, religion, sexual orientation, beliefs, and identities. Well, right now, you realize that country has changed a lot because it's much more rock oriented. We know that anybody that was really in rock music when it was in its heyday, as we heard from Dave Pratt in a previous interview I had on the show, which I had him over 3 episodes, you mentioned how like all the rock musicians, all the rock session players, they all moved to Nashville because that's where you could go and still be instrumental. And that would be the other part you would have to say is that, country is very much an instrumental brand. It's just that music is just not very digital these days yet. And that's really what it comes down to, is that's the disconnect that they don't talk about here in this study. I mean, you would need to have not just that. I mean, sure, you could have other artists that are in here that could do, but I mean, why does it, it's just a matter of music can be for different audiences. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Why does country music need to be so specific on trying to reach a larger audience? They have a big audience now. I don't know what they were trying to say. I mean, they obviously have artists, and they were talking about Brothers Osborne, but, let's not talk about Little Nas X and his work with Billy Ray Cyrus last year for Old Town, or 2 years ago with Old Town Road. Let's not talk about, Nelly and all the work he did with Florida Georgia Line, or, there was just a lot of that where you just see, okay, we have had art, or Blanco Brown, you get about with the Get Up, and all the things that, you have certain artists that come in. Kane Brown is mixed. You could say there's some diversity coming into the play. But as long as it doesn't change the music itself, you want to keep the feeling of the music that there is, that's fine. I can see that, but I don't know. It just feels kind of weird that we have this story where they want to create diversity here, but as an award association, they're just trying to do something to get more of an audience involved, and that's something also they can market to more people. I get that part. But I don't know if you're going to get diversity in country music to the level that people would be satisfied with. Again, you're just trying to embrace more people into the music. That's fine, but is it going to work? I don't know if it will, but can't knock them for trying, right? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. That's the show for today. Thanks for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. As you always listen in, I appreciate you checking it out. Final episode of the year comes up next week, where I'll talk about that part about podcasting, which I want to take some time and talk about that story from the DePaul University newspaper. I want to talk about that. And then also how 2021 is bound to be a year of pop culture disappointments. We'll talk about that as we kind of wrap things up for the year here on the Broadcasters Podcast. Till next week, remember that content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.